The desert wind howled outside the reinforced windows of Outpost Omega, carrying whispers of dust and forgotten promises. Marcus Donovan stared at the holographic orders floating before him, his fingers tracing the edge of the digital projection with a mixture of disbelief and apprehension. Warship Command. Him, a mid-level strategic analyst who had spent the last 5 years buried in tactical simulations and probability matrices. "This has to be a mistake," he muttered, his voice barely audible above the low hum of the base's environmental systems. The orders were crystal clear, though. Effective immediately, he was to take command of the experimental warship, Horizon Blade. A vessel so classified that most high-ranking officials didn't even know of its existence. Colonel Valeria Erickson, his immediate superior, stood rigidly beside him. Her steel-gray eyes betrayed nothing, but a slight tension in her jaw suggested this was anything but a routine transfer. "The brass doesn't make mistakes, Donovan," she said coldly. "You've been chosen for reasons beyond your current understanding." Marcus knew better than to question further. His military career had been built on precision, on following orders without hesitation. Yet something about this assignment felt different, wrong even. The Horizon Blade was unlike any vessel in the human fleet. Experimental quantum drive, adaptive nanoarmor, weapons systems that existed only in the most classified research papers. And now, inexplicably, he was to be its commander. "Report to Docking Bay 7 at 600 hours, Erickson continued. "Your crew manifest and initial briefing will be uploaded to your neural link within the hour. And Donovan," she paused, her gaze drilling into him, "don't disappoint us." The unspoken threat hung in the air like static electricity. That night, Marcus found himself in his sparse quarters, surrounded by the few personal items he'd accumulated during years of military service. A holographic projection of the Horizon Blade rotated slowly above his desk, sleek, predatory, almost alive. Its lines suggested something more than a traditional warship. Something different. He accessed the preliminary crew manifest, his augmented neural interface flooding his consciousness with data. Highly specialized personnel. Backgrounds so classified that most entries were nothing more than encrypted placeholders. Something was brewing, and he was at the center of it. Sleep came in fits and starts, punctuated by dreams of vast, impossible spaces and shadows moving just beyond perception. When his neural alarm triggered at 500 hours, Marcus was already awake, his military-trained body running on pure anticipation and a low-grade anxiety that had been his constant companion. The walk to Docking Bay 7 felt like a journey into the unknown. Sterile corridors of the military complex seemed to narrow, watching him. Other personnel moved with calculated efficiency, their gazes sliding past him as if he were already something other than human. Docking Bay 7 was a cathedral of technological marvel. The Horizon Blade dominated the space, its midnight black hull absorbing light, defying conventional understanding of spacecraft design. Marcus could feel the ship. Not see, not hear, feel. A subtle vibration that spoke of potential, of something waiting to be unleashed. "Commander Donovan," a synthesized voice greeted him as he approached the primary access port. "Biometric and security verification in progress." A moment of absolute stillness, then a series of mechanical clicks, and the massive boarding door irised open. He was home, or whatever home was about to become. Little did Marcus know that within hours, everything he understood about command, about warfare, about humanity itself would be fundamentally challenged. The arrival of the alien warriors would change everything. And his journey was just beginning. The desert rippled with heat when the first dropship descended. Marcus watched from the observation deck of the Horizon Blade, his neural interface flooding with incoming tactical data that made little sense. The craft moved with a fluidity that defied known aerodynamic principles. No human engineering could produce such precision. Dust erupted in a perfect geometric pattern as the vessel touched down. Marcus had expected a military-style disembarkation. What emerged was anything but standard. The first warrior to exit moved with a predatory grace that immediately challenged every preconception of alien biology. She was tall, nearly 2.5 meters, with skin that seemed to shimmer between metallic silver and deep indigo, depending on how the harsh desert light caught her. Intricate biomechanical armor integrated so seamlessly with her body that Marcus couldn't distinguish where organic matter ended and technological enhancement began. I am Kelara, first commanding adjudicator of the Verni warrior collective. Her voice resonated directly into Marcus's mind, bypassing traditional audio communication. A neural transmission that felt like liquid electricity. Behind her, 5 more warriors descended. Each moved with identical precision, yet Marcus could detect subtle differences. Specialized roles, perhaps, tactical variations within a unified biological framework. The primary communication officer, Lieutenant Marcos Rodriguez, looked pale. Sir, our translation matrices are struggling. Their communication is complex. Marcus stepped forward, acutely aware of the weight of his new command. Open primary communication channels, full spectrum. Kelara's eyes, multifaceted and reflecting wavelengths beyond human perception, locked onto him. A challenge, an assessment. You are unexpected, she transmitted. The words carried layers of meaning, not just linguistic but cultural, strategic, almost biological. The next hours became a delicate dance of communication and territorial posturing. The Verni warriors moved through the military base like liquid mercury, their presence both mesmerizing and deeply unsettling. Their technology seemed to interact with human systems, adapting, probing, understanding. Marcus learned quickly that the Verni were not simply a military force. They were a collective consciousness, a living network where individual identity merged with a greater systemic understanding. Each warrior was both an individual and a node in a complex, living network. Kelara revealed little about their true purpose. Fragments of communication suggested they were refugees or perhaps scouts. Their arrival was both a diplomatic mission and something more, a potential strategic realignment that could reshape galactic power structures. During a late-night strategy session, as holographic displays danced with incomprehensible data streams, Kelara approached Marcus with unprecedented directness. Your species stands at a critical evolutionary junction, she transmitted. The intimacy of the neural connection was jarring. Marcus could feel the edge of her thoughts, the razor-sharp precision of her strategic mind. Sexual tension wasn't a concept that translated cleanly into Verni biology, yet there was something undeniably charged in their interaction, a recognition, a potential. We did not choose you by accident, Kelara continued. Her armor shifted, revealing intricate biomechanical patterns that seemed to pulse with their own life force. You are compatible. The word hung in the neural space between them, laden with implications Marcus was only beginning to comprehend. Outside, the desert night consumed the base. Human and alien, 2 species on the precipice of a transformation neither fully understood. And Marcus Donovan was at the center of it all. The training facility was a crucible of biological and technological potential. Marcus quickly realized that for the Verni, combat was not just a skill, but a form of communication, a language more nuanced than verbal expression. Kelara selected him for a series of trials that would determine his worthiness as a potential leader. These were not mere physical tests, but complex neural and empathetic challenges that pushed the boundaries of human capability. Their first intensive training session began at dawn. The Verni warriors assembled in a circular formation, their biomechanical armor adjusting to the environment with chameleon-like precision. Marcus stood at the center, feeling simultaneously exposed and charged with potential. Synchronization requires total vulnerability, Kelara transmitted. Her neural communication carried an edge of something Marcus was beginning to recognize as anticipation, excitement, challenge. The first test was a neural resonance challenge. Marcus would need to match the collective thought patterns of the Verni warriors, a task that pushed human cognitive limits. Neural interfaces connected, creating a momentary bridge between human individual consciousness and the Verni collective awareness. Pain erupted first, then understanding. Fragments of Kelara's memories flooded Marcus's mind. Battles on distant planets, the destruction of her primary collective, the desperate journey that brought them to Earth. Each memory was a living, breathing experience, not just remembered but re-experienced with visceral intensity. He saw her first battle at what humans would consider adolescence, saw the biological imperative that drove the Verni survival through adaptation, through strategic alliance, saw the profound loneliness of a species whose very survival depended on finding compatible allies. When the neural connection broke, Marcus was on his knees. Sweat mixed with a silvery substance that seemed to have leaked from his neural implants, a biological response to the intense connection. Kilara stood above him, not triumphant, assessing. "Interesting," she transmitted. The subsequent days became a blur of training. Physical challenges that tested human endurance against Verni biological enhancement. Strategic simulations that required Marcus to think beyond linear human tactical approaches. Moments of intense physical proximity that blurred the lines between combat training and something more intimate. During a close-quarters combat exercise, Marcus found himself pressed against Kilara, their bodies moving in a dance that was part warfare, part something else entirely. Her biomechanical armor responded to their proximity, creating micro-adjustments that felt almost like a caress. "You are learning," she transmitted. The neural communication carried a note that might have been appreciation. The other Verni warriors watched, some with skepticism, others with a growing sense that Marcus represented something unexpected, a potential bridge between species. One warrior, Relina, whose role seemed to be a tactical analyst, approached Marcus during a rest period. "The first adjudicator does not choose her potential mates lightly," she transmitted. The communication carried layers of meaning, part warning, part assessment. As nights passed in the desert base, Marcus realized he was no longer just a human military officer. He was becoming something else, something between human and Verni, a potential bridge between species. And Kilara was both his trainer and something more complex, a potential partner, a strategic ally, perhaps even a mate. The transformation had begun. The revelation came during a moment of absolute vulnerability. Marcus and Kilara stood in the Horizon Blade's most secure communication chamber, a space designed to block all external signals and neural transmissions. Here, communication was raw, unfiltered, stripped of technological mediation. "Our arrival was not random," Kilara transmitted, her biomechanical armor shifting to create a more intimate neural connection. "We were sent with a specific purpose." The truth unfolded like a complex, multi-dimensional puzzle. The Verni were not merely refugees or scouts. They were survivors of a galactic conflict that had decimated entire civilizations. Their species stood on the brink of extinction, searching for a way to ensure their survival. Marcus learned about the Quantum Convergence War, a conflict so vast and complex that human historical records couldn't even comprehend its scale. Entire star systems had been reduced to quantum dust. Civilizations had been compressed into mathematical probabilities. The Verni had a radical solution: genetic adaptation, biological merger with a compatible species. And humans, specifically Marcus, represented their best chance. Their intimate encounters were more than sexual. They were complex biological negotiations. Each touch, each neural connection was a potential genetic mapping, a way to determine compatibility for species survival. "We need more than genetic material," Kilara transmitted. "We need a strategic partner, a bridge between what was and what could be." The sexual tension between them had evolved. No longer just physical attraction, but a complex interspecies potential. Their neural connections became increasingly intricate, revealing layers of biological and strategic complexity. During one particularly intense neural sync, Marcus experienced Kilara's memories of her homeworld. Vast crystalline cities that functioned like living organisms. Technological ecosystems that blurred the lines between biological and mechanical. He saw the moment her primary collective was destroyed. The quantum weapons that had reduced entire planetary systems to statistical anomalies. The desperate escape. The years of searching for a compatible species. And now they had found humans, found him. The other Verni warriors watched their developing connection with a mixture of hope and strategic calculation. Relina, the tactical analyst, continued to assess Marcus with a critical eye. "Not all potential mergers are successful," she transmitted to Marcus during a training session. The warning was clear: their connection was both a hope and a potential failure point. Political machinations on Earth began to shift. Military and scientific leadership became aware that something extraordinary was happening. Marcus's connection with the Verni represented more than a potential military alliance. It was a potential evolutionary leap. As weeks passed, Marcus and Kilara's connection deepened. Neural synchronizations became more frequent, more intense. The line between individual identity and collective consciousness began to blur. They were becoming something new, something that defied current understanding of biology, sexuality, and interspecies communication. And the galaxy was watching. The final confrontation was nothing like anyone had predicted. It began with a quantum disruption at the edge of the solar system. Sensors on the horizon blade detected something that defied current scientific understanding, a massive energy signature that seemed to fold space-time itself. The remnants of the civilization that had nearly destroyed the Verni had found them. Marcus and Kelara stood on the bridge of the horizon blade, their neural connection now so profound that individual thoughts were almost indistinguishable. They were no longer just a human commander and an alien warrior. They were a unified strategic entity. "They want to complete what they started," Kelara transmitted. The incoming threat was a species that viewed existence as a mathematical problem to be solved through total elimination. The battle that followed transcended traditional warfare. Quantum weapons that could disassemble matter at the molecular level. Defensive strategies that required simultaneous multidimensional thinking. The Horizon Blade became more than a ship. It was a living weapon, responsive to the neural network of Marcus and the Verni warriors. Relina coordinated tactical responses with machine-like precision. The other Verni warriors became extensions of a single, coherent consciousness. And at the center of it all were Marcus and Kelara, their connection a beacon of resistance. Their intimate connection had become their greatest strategic asset. Where human tactical thinking met Verni collective consciousness, something extraordinary emerged. The enemy attack waves crashed against their defenses like quantum tsunamis. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist around the horizon blade. Marcus experienced the battle not through visual sensors, but through a complex neural landscape where mathematical probabilities became weapons. "We are more than survival," Kelara transmitted during a critical moment. "We are evolution." When the final quantum surge hit, something extraordinary happened. Marcus's human consciousness merged completely with Kelara's Verni network. Not a loss of individual identity, but an expansion, a true convergence. They won, but winning meant becoming something entirely new. In the aftermath, Earth's leadership struggled to comprehend what had occurred. The Horizon Blade returned, transformed. Marcus was no longer purely human. Kelara was no longer solely Verni. They had become a bridge, a new possibility. Their connection was intimate in ways that transcended physical understanding. Sexual, intellectual, evolutionary, a merging that represented hope for two species. As quantum stabilization protocols restored normal space-time conditions, Marcus and Kelara looked out at the vastness of space. No longer two beings, not quite one, but something extraordinary in between. The future had arrived, and it was nothing like anyone had expected.